Chapter 4766. Wah. In the void, Yama's baleful aura surged like a raging wave, blotting out the sun as it pressed down on Emoguchin. What a terrifying aura! Everyone trembled as they felt the power of Yama's baleful aura. This is the first time I've seen the real hell of Yama. I didn't expect it to be so strong. Jikichin's eyes were gloomy as he muttered in shock. The geniuses of the Hell Realm are indeed worthy of their reputation. Shintian frowned. He was also shocked. Brother Nya, I don't think Emoguchin can even take one attack from Yin Wuxian. Sheng Yichin said when he saw Nya Tian's worried expression. Not necessarily. Nya Tian's expression was tense, as he said in a deep voice. Although he didn't know why, he trusted Emoguchin blindly and felt that the latter couldn't be so simple. If Emoguchin stepped into Hell of Yama without any preparation, how different would he be from a fool? Break! At this moment, Emoguchin made his move. With a low roar, the shadow of a giant elephant appeared behind him and charged forward. Its powerful aura forcefully broke through Yama's baleful aura. How is this possible? Inside Hell of Yama, Yin Wuxian was forced to take a few steps back. After stabilizing himself, he stared at Emoguchin in shock. He had heard of Emoguchin's name and knew that the latter was the #1 genius of the Hell of Darkness. However, he didn't expect Emoguchin to be this strong. Is this all the famous Hell of Yama is capable of? Emoguchin looked at Yin Wuxian and sneered disdainfully. Arrogant. Yin Wuxian was infuriated after being looked down upon in public. He roared and a huge amount of Yama's baleful aura condensed in the void. In the blink of an eye, it formed a giant skull that opened its mouth to swallow Emoguchin. What a powerful aura! Emoguchin frowned. His eyes were filled with unconcealable nervousness. Although he looked calm on the surface, his entire body was tense. He had heard of Hell of Yama's strength. The reason why he stepped in without hesitation was not only because he was young, but also because he wanted to challenge himself. Bang! In the next instant, there was a muffled sound in the void. Emoguchin's figure was sent flying like a small boat in a storm. What a powerful strength! When the onlookers saw this, they were all shocked. The strength of the Hell of Yama King was beyond everyone's expectations. Even someone as strong as Emoguchin would find it hard to break free after falling into the Yama Hell. Yin Wuxian was a young martial practitioner, but his strength was even more terrifying than some of the famed experts who had been famous for a long time. Is it about to end? Sheng Yichin's eyes were trembling, and his lips were a little dry. Emoguchin, no matter what trump card you have, it is best for you to use it as soon as possible. Nya Tian frowned and muttered. He had a feeling that Emoguchin was not as simple as he appeared to be. But what exactly was Emoguchin's trump card? The Yama Hell enchantment was extremely unique. Once someone entered it, they would have to kill Yin Wuxian first to break it. Or he could break the barrier from the outside. However, Dark Prison's Chun Abyss and Purgatory's 100 Slaughters Ash were eyeing Emoguchin and Yin Wuxian's battle covetously. Die! Yin Wuxian's sinister voice rang out from the Yama Hell as he clenched his fist in the air. Boom! Instantly, boundless baleful aura of the Yama Hell converged and surged towards Emoguchin like a raging tsunami. Emoguchin was enveloped by an invisible force and was unable to move. He could only forcefully endure it. Oh no! Nya Tian couldn't help but frown when he saw this. His expression turned extremely ugly as he took a step forward, preparing to act at any moment. Brother Nya, Jikichin, Emo Xianting, Sheng Yichin, and the rest all sensed Nya Tian's abnormality and turned to look at him. What was the relationship between Nya Tian and Emoguchin? Why did Nya Tian suddenly become so anxious when Emoguchin was in danger? Tian Sha, come out. But at this moment, Emoguchin suddenly roared and stretched his hand into the air, as though he was summoning something. Tian Sha. Hearing these two words, Nya Tian's expression instantly changed. Dual absolute astral souls, Tian Sha Lone Star. Among the forbidden astral souls, the strongest was the Lonely Sky astral soul, Purple Myrtle Sovereign Descents. Below the Lonely Sky astral soul were the dual absolute astral souls, Tian Sha Lone Star and Slaughter Vanquisher Wolf. The Slaughter Vanquisher Wolf astral soul had already been fused by Tang 13. The Tian Sha astral soul had yet to appear. Who would have thought that one of the dual absolute astral souls, the Tian Sha Lone Star, would actually appear in one of the 7 great prison realms? What exactly was going on? Boom! In the next instant, as the sound of Mo Guchen's voice faded, a huge hole suddenly appeared in the air, revealing a space-time vortex. What is this? Everyone exclaimed in shock, completely clueless as to what had just happened. What exactly did Mo Guchen do? Why would a space-time vortex suddenly appear? Why? Just as everyone was bewildered, a strange black light appeared from within the space-time vortex, after which a black sword flew out with incredible speed and a majestic aura, aiming for the Yamahel. It's a sword, everyone exclaimed, unable to believe the scene before them. Who would have thought that the space-time vortex would suddenly explode and a black sword would appear? The black sword's aura was extremely majestic. Wherever it passed, a storm of space-time would appear, as though the heavens and earth were collapsing. What a terrifying aura! Everyone's eyes trembled uncontrollably as they were all stunned by the black sword's aura. How is this possible? Chen Yuan and Bai Tu Jin were originally guarding Yin Wuxian, but when they saw the scene before them, they too were dumbfounded. Boom! At this moment, the huge black sword had already fallen, heavily bombarding the King Yinluo's infernal barrier. The entire enchantment shook violently, as though it was a battleship that was unable to withstand the impact of a violent storm. This is impossible. Yin Wuxian's eyes trembled, and the Yama baleful chi around him rumbled like a tidal wave, but was obvious that it was being suppressed. The Yamahel's enchantment was about to be broken. Boom! Above the enchantment, a loud explosion suddenly sounded. The black sword had torn a hole in the enchantment. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, the Yama baleful chi could no longer hold on, and like a broken dam, it escaped from the enchantment. The trapped Mo Guchen immediately regained his ability to move, and a smile appeared on his face. With a wave of his hand, the black sword directly broke through the enchantment and landed in his hand. Boom! At this moment, a tremendous amount of power burst forth from his body. It was as though a black dragon was surging forth from his body. His entire person was like a demon god of swords, and a terrifying aura surged out from him, emitting a powerful, murderous aura. Chapter 4767. Boom, boom, boom. In the void, a terrifying aura surged around Mo Guchen's body. Black runes surged endlessly and charged around his body like black flames. What a powerful aura! Everyone looked at Mo Guchen and could not help but feel fear in their hearts. Their expressions all changed. Although Mo Guchen was known as the #1 genius of Dark Prison, no one expected him to be this powerful. He could even be compared to the Night King of the 7 Knights underworld race. How can this guy be so powerful? Chen Yuan, who was also a genius of Dark Prison like Mo Guchen, paled. He had fought with Mo Guchen many times. Although he lost every time, he did not lose badly. At least, Chen Yuan felt that his strength was similar to Mo Guchen's. But now, the power that Mo Guchen had displayed had far exceeded his expectations. Could it be that he was hiding his strength when we fought before? Chen Yuan did not believe that Mo Guchen could make such a huge leap in such a short period of time. Therefore, he was more inclined to believe that Mo Guchen was hiding his strength. Impossible. This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. At this moment, Yin Wuxian, whose Yamahel boundary was broken, seemed to have gone mad. His long hair flew in the wind as he screamed. Yamahel was the strongest bloodline boundary of the Yama family. How could it be broken? Who exactly was Mo Guchen? Yin Wuxian, do you still want to fight? Mo Guchen held the black sword in his hand. His aura was powerful and terrifying. Just by standing there, he gave off the feeling of a mountain pressing down on them. But he did not push his luck. Instead, he did not want to fight Yin Wuxian anymore. Perhaps, in his opinion, Yin Wuxian, who had lost his Yama hell boundary, was no longer worthy to be his opponent. Tian Sha, why is your aura different? In the distance, Nie Tian looked at Mo Guchen. He felt that the latter's aura was slightly different from Tian Sha's. He suddenly remembered that when he returned to the 9 regions, Tian Sha had appeared and imprisoned Mo Rushi in the star-forbidden space. Tian Sha wanted to obtain the Star Origin Stone and fight with the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. But later, the Heaven Dao, Sacred Pavilion, and Ni Yuan Black Root appeared, forcing Tian Sha and the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart to work together. In the end, Tian Sha gave in and took Tang 13 with him. At this moment, Nie Tian was unsure if this Mo Guchen in front of him was the Heaven Sha, because his aura was different from the Heaven Sha he knew. Mo Guchen, you destroyed my king of hell. I will kill you. Yin Wuxian's eyes had long since turned red from the battle. His eyes flashed with a cold light. He actually wanted to continue fighting, and he even wanted to kill Mo Guchen. Do you want to die? Mo Guchen's eyes were cold, and his killing intent was surging. He didn't want to kill Yin Wuxian at first, but if the latter didn't know what was good for him, he didn't mind killing him directly. Yin Wuxian, you are no match for him. Step aside. But at this moment, a figure stood out. He glanced at Yin Wuxian and spoke in a cold tone that left no room for rejection. 100 slaughtering ashes. Everyone's eyes widened. The person who stood out was none other than Yin Wuxian's ally, by Tu Jin of the Purgatory Realm. Clearly, he didn't want to see Yin Wuxian die at Mo Guchen's hands. Yes, Yin Wuxian looked at Bai Tu Jin deeply. Even though he was a little unwilling, he calmed down and finally nodded and stepped aside. People from the Purgatory Realm, come at me. Mo Guchen's eyes narrowed. He glanced at Bai Tu Jin coldly, and a look of disdain appeared on his face. You want to die? Bai Tu Jin had never been looked down upon like this before. He was instantly enraged. He bellowed and clenched his fist in the air. A ball of fire appeared and condensed into a sword of fire. Immediately, a wave of heat spread out and filled the void. Everyone felt as if they were in a sea of fire. Good sword. Yet Tian's eyes narrowed. He looked at the flame in Bai Tu Jin's hand and exclaimed inwardly. He had the flame of primal chaos in his body. After sensing the aura of the sword of fire, he felt an indescribable restlessness. Could this sword be the legendary heart of purgatory? Bai Zichio's expression changed when he saw the sword of fire in Bai Tu Jin's hand. Back when Bai Tu Jin entered the endless purgatory, no one thought he would be able to do well. However, he eventually walked out of the endless purgatory. After he came out of the endless purgatory, there was a rumor that he had brought the heart of purgatory out of the endless purgatory. Who would have thought that the rumor was true? The heart of purgatory. Nie Tian frowned and couldn't help but look at Bai Zichio. The latter's reaction meant that the heart of purgatory was not an ordinary item. Brother Nie, the endless purgatory is a forbidden place in the purgatory realm. Legend has it that the endless purgatory was formed after the fall of a fire ancestral dragon in the primordial era. Bai Zichio's eyes were dark, and he was clearly nervous. He explained, the heart of purgatory was formed from the fire ancestral dragon's tongue. It contains the power of fire that can burn everything. The heart of purgatory could burn everything. Even a peak Heaven Marvel's cultivator would find it hard to endure its terrifying power. I see. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He couldn't help but worry for Mo Guchen. It was still doubtful whether Mo Guchen was the heavenly fiend Starlord. Moreover, the battle between him and Yin Wuxian seemed easy, but in reality, it was a Pyrrhic victory. Although Yin Wuxian was defeated, Mo Guchen was also heavily injured. He just didn't show it. Mo Guchen, let me see how many slashes you can endure under my heart of purgatory. Bai Tu Jin shouted coldly in a domineering manner. He slashed out with his sword, causing the power of fire to howl through the air. Then it exploded in the air, instantly forming a sea of fire that pressed down on Mo Guchen. Boom, boom, boom. Rolling waves of fire surged in the void like a sea. The roaring heat waves seemed to want to burn the world. Everyone retreated under the impact of the waves of fire. They revealed expressions of disbelief. Although everyone was mentally prepared, They didn't expect Bai Tu Jin's strength to be this strong. Even a peak Heaven Marvel's cultivator would not dare to be careless against such a terrifying fire. Mo Guchun was covered in flames. Black runes shone on his body and turned into a shield that surrounded his body to resist the impact of the fire. At the same time, he retreated. Bang! However, the power of the fire was so strong that even the rune shield could not withstand it. In the blink of an eye, it broke and Mo Guchun was sent flying. In the rolling waves of fire, he was like a leaf that was on the verge of collapse. Oh no! When Ye Tian saw this, he couldn't help but frown. He knew that the situation was not good. He had expected Mo Guchun to lose, but he didn't expect that he would lose so quickly. The number one genius of Dark Prison is only SOSO. Bai Tu Jin laughed wildly. Killing intent surged in his eyes. The heart of purgatory slashed down again. He clearly wanted to kill Mo Guchun. Chapter 4768. Boom! In the sky, the heart of purgatory descended. The surging sword intent turned into a boundless sea of fire. The tongues of fire spat out as if they wanted to devour the world. Once such a terrifying flaming sword aura landed, Mo Guchun's fate would be certain to be death. Wah! At this critical moment, a ball of starlight appeared in the sky and landed on Mo Guchun's body. It turned into a shield and enveloped him. 8 Desolation Sword. Almost at the same time, a sword shadow appeared. It was also a fiery sword. Like a giant beast, it rolled forward and blocked the sword of purgatory. Feeling the impact, Bai Tu Jin could barely withstand it. He could not help but take a few steps back before he could stabilize himself. He exclaimed in surprise. His eyes flashed with cold light as he looked coldly at the silver-haired figure nearby. If you want to kill him, you have to ask me first. Ye Tian stood beside Mo Guchun. The corner of his lips curled up as he spoke. He felt Mo Guchun's breathing. It was stable. He was much more at ease. Why did you save me? Mo Guchun took a deep breath. His face was still pale. He asked in a deep voice, his tone extremely cold. You are injured. You should step back. Ye Tian glanced at him and replied. Mo Guchun frowned. He stared at Ye Tian for a long time before finally stepping aside. Brat, who are you? Flames raged around Bai Tu Jin's body, but his eyes were as cold as ice as he stared at Ye Tian. It was as if he wanted to tear the latter into pieces before burning his bones into ashes. Only then would his hatred be appeased. This was the first time someone had dared to meddle in his business. It's just a competition. Why do you have to kill? Ye Tian's reply was extremely calm. It was obvious that he did not take Bai Tu Jin seriously. When Mo Guchun defeated Yan Wuxian, he did not have any killing intent. But Bai Tu Jin succeeded in one move. It was as if he had killed someone. After all, the Heavenly Prison Dragon Gate was open for the 12 Sky Pillars project. In other words, the people here were likely to become his teammates. Bai Tu Jin had such a strong killing intent. Who would feel at ease being teammates with him? Should I kill someone? Kill who? What does it have to do with you? Bai Tu Jin didn't know who Ye Tian was, but he didn't sense any powerful hell energy from the latter. He couldn't help but feel puzzled and spoke in a cold tone. Should I save him? Save who? What does it have to do with you? Ye Tianling laughed. His words were clearly mocking Bai Tu Jin. You're courting death. Bai Tu Jin was instantly enraged. The heart of purgatory soared into the sky, and terrifying purgatory energy surged out, causing the void to tremble. Your aura isn't bad, but it's a pity that it's useless. Ye Tian's face was filled with disdain as he unsheathed the sky sword. A sharp sword chi pierced through the air, shattering the enormous momentum in the air. How is this possible? Bai Tu Jin retreated several steps, his face flushed red and extremely unsightly. He simply could not believe that the person in front of him, who looked even younger than him, actually had such strength. That was just a warning. If you still don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being merciless. The corner of Ye Tian's mouth pulled into a cold smile, and his eyes surged with murderous intent. You? Bai Tu Jin's expression changed, and his heart inexplicably shuddered. Under Nie Tian's gaze, he actually felt like a little lamb that was about to fall into the mouth of a tiger. Moreover, Nie Tian's murderous intent was too strong, and he could not help but want to retreat. Nie Tian, do you want to monopolize the Emperor Rainbow Flower? At this time, Chen Yuan suddenly walked up and loudly reprimanded. Monopolize? When Nie Tian heard these two words, he could not help but feel that it was laughable. He looked at Chen Yuan coldly and said, Didn't the three of you join forces just now to monopolize the Emperor Rainbow Flower? Why did you lose now? You're saying that I'm monopolizing the Emperor Rainbow Flower? Don't you think that you're very laughable? As the last word fell, his eyes were as sharp as a blade as they locked onto Chen Yuan. What a terrifying aura! Chen Yuan's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly avoided Nie Tian's gaze. In that instant, he felt as if he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. A deep sense of helplessness made him despair. He had fought with Nie Tian before, so he naturally knew how powerful the latter was. Lord Yuan, are you going to keep watching? However, Chen Yuan did not give up. Instead, he looked at the distant Yi Wushang and shouted. Yin Wuxian had been defeated, and Bai Tu Jin was no match for Nie Tian. Thus, the only people present who could stop Nie Tian were the seven-night underworld race. It was obvious that Chen Yuan wanted to use the seven-night underworld race to suppress Nie Tian. The seven-night underworld race is not interested in the Emperor Rainbow Flower. Yi Wushang frowned and replied coldly. Then, he turned around and left with the seven-night underworld race. Chen Yuan, the seven-night underworld race can't be relied on anymore. Why don't you come yourself? Let me see just how powerful those 8 claws of yours are. Nie Tianling sneered mockingly. Nie Tian you. Chen Yuan's expression was unsightly, but he did not dare to fight with Nie Tian. Since you don't dare to fight, then scram. Nie Tian could not be bothered to waste his breath. He shouted, and his voice echoed in Chen Yuan's ears like a clap of thunder, forcing him to retreat. Chen Yuan, Yin Wuxian, let's go. Bai Tu Jin, however, was tactful. After giving Nie Tian a hard look, he turned around and left. Chen Yuan and Yin Wuxian did not dare to stay and immediately followed after him. Brother Nie, Bai Tu Jin is a vicious and vengeful person. You've offended him, so he will definitely not let this matter rest. Bai Ziqiu came to Nie Tian's side and looked at the backs of Bai Tu Jin and the others with a worried expression. It's better for him to behave himself in front of me. Nie Tian smiled. He did not care about Bai Tu Jin at all. Although Bai Tu Jin was a top genius in the 7 prison realms, he was far from being a threat to Nie Tian, who was in the 9th level Heaven Enlightenment realm. Bai Ziqiu, you guys enter the Emperor Rainbow Flower. Nie Tian glanced at Bai Ziqiu, Shang Yichen, and the others with a faint smile. What about you, Brother Nie? Ji Qichen was confused when he saw that Nie Tian had no intention of entering the Emperor Rainbow Flower. The Emperor Rainbow Flower could directly increase a cultivator's martial Dao talent. Why was Nie Tian not interested in such a rare treasure? I'll stand guard outside for you. Nie Tian smiled faintly, not minding at all. This all right. Everyone was a little embarrassed. But how could they resist the temptation of the Emperor Rainbow Flower? They nodded and entered the Emperor Rainbow Flower. Mo Guchen glanced at Nie Tian as if he had something to say, but he did not say it. In the end, he still entered the Emperor Rainbow Flower. The trip to the Heavenly Prison Dragon sect isn't important. The key is the 12 Heavenly Pillars plan. I have to gather as many people as I can believe in. Nie Tian murmured to himself as he looked at the people inside the Emperor Rainbow Flower. Ji Kachen, Mo Xiantian, and the others were all companions he could trust. Their increase in talent and strength would be a great guarantee for the 12 Heavenly Pillars plan. What does the 12 Heavenly Pillars have to do with Dongwang Zhengrong? Nie Tian took a deep breath. The doubts in his heart grew stronger. He had a vague feeling that he was getting closer to Dongwang Zhengrong. Chapter 4769. Prison Sky Dragon Sect, 5th Prison Sky. Congratulations, everyone. Nie Tian congratulated Mo Guchen, Bai Ziqiu, and the others as they walked out of the Emperor Rainbow Flower. He could sense that their auras had indeed improved. Thank you, Brother Nya. Without you, I would never have had the chance to enjoy a sacred item like the Emperor Rainbow Flower. Bai Zichio thanked Nya Tian solemnly, his face filled with gratitude. Brother Bai, you're too kind. We're all friends. Nya Tian smiled and patted Bai Zichio's shoulder. Friends, Emo Guchen, however, let out a cold laugh. He glanced at Nya Tian and said, I'm not your friend. Emo Guchen charged to the top of the 5th prison sky and entered the 6th prison sky. This guy really doesn't know what's good for him. Bai Zichio frowned. He could not stand Emo Guchen. Nya Tian had saved Emo Guchen and allowed him to enter the Emperor Rainbow Flower. Not only did Emo Guchen not thank him, he even had such an attitude. Let him be. Nya Tian, however, didn't seem to mind. Bai Zichio wanted to say something, but was stopped by Sheng Yichen. Sheng Yichen could tell that the relationship between Nya Tian and Emo Guchen was not ordinary. However, Emo Guchen did not seem to know Nya Tian at all. It was strange. The group did not waste any time and immediately arrived at the top of the 5th prison sky. Ji Qichen, Emo Xiantian, Sheng Yichen, and Zhua Kunlun easily passed through the spatial barrier. After absorbing the energy of the Emperor Rainbow Flower, their talent and strength had improved significantly. Even Bai Zichio, who was the weakest among them, entered the 6th prison sky after a few attempts. Needless to say, Nya Tian blurred into action and passed through the spatial barrier. When he arrived at the 6th prison sky, Nya Tian felt that the hell energy in the space was even stronger. Brother Nya, entering the 6th prison sky is already my limit. I can't enter the 7th prison sky. Bai Zichio looked at Nya Tian with a grateful expression and said, Next, I'm going to find a safe place to cultivate. You guys can go to the higher levels of hell. Yes. Nya Tian nodded slightly and told Bai Zichio to be careful. After all, Bai Zichio's talent was limited. It was thanks to the help of the Emperor Rainbow Flower that he was able to enter the 6th hell. The 6th purgatory was already his limit. It wouldn't be good to force him any further. The hell energy here was dense, and cultivating here was much faster than in the outside world. As long as he found a secluded place and cultivated by himself, he should be fine. Brother Nya, the two of us are going to take a look at other places. Farewell. Ji Qichen and Mo Xiantian took the initiative to look at Nya Tian and said with a smile, All right. Nya Tian naturally wouldn't stop them. He was happy to see the Dao and Demon Twins working together. What about you two? After the Dao and Demon Twins left, Nya Tian looked at Sheng Yichen and Zhua Kunlun and directly asked, Thank you for taking care of us along the way, Brother Nya. We would like to walk on our own for the rest of the journey. Sheng Yichen and Zhua Kunlun exchanged glances and nodded. They had been taken care of by Nya Tian in the Heavenly Prison Dragon sect, and he had even saved their lives. However, if they continued like this, they would lose the meaning of training in the Heavenly Prison Dragon sect. Therefore, they decided to walk the rest of the journey on their own. No matter which level of the Heavenly Prison Dragon sect they ended up in, they would have no regrets. All right, the two of you, try not to separate. Take care of each other. Nya Tian smiled faintly and nodded. Since the two of them wanted to explore with their own strength, he naturally wouldn't stop them. Brother Nya, thank you. The two of them thanked him in unison, and without further delay, they turned around and left. I'm the only one left. That's good too. I can directly go to the 9th purgatory. In the blink of an eye, there was no one around Nya Tian. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. However, this way, he wouldn't have any burden and could directly go to the 9th purgatory. With that thought, he moved and quickly arrived at the top of the 6th purgatory. The space barrier between the 6th and 7th purgatory is actually so much stronger than the space barrier between the 5th and 6th purgatory. Nya Tian wasn't in a hurry to enter. Instead, he sensed it and was quite shocked. There is only a difference of one level between the 5th and 6th purgatory, but the strength of the space barrier differed greatly. Based on his initial estimation, the space barrier in front of him was at least twice as strong as the previous one. The Heavenly Prison Dragon sect had a total of 9 purgatories, and the 9 purgatories were further divided into major levels. 1 to 3 was a level, 4 to 6 was a level, and 7 to 9 was a level. Now, that Nietian wanted to enter the 7th purgatory. It seemed like he was jumping between levels, but in reality, he was going from the 2nd level to the 3rd level, which was equivalent to directly crossing 3 levels of purgatory. Although this space barrier is strong, it can't stop me. Nietian smiled faintly. The chaotic flame appeared in his hand and turned into a space-time blade. He gently swung it down and directly cut the space barrier. He took a step forward. When his foot landed, he was already in the 7th purgatory. The purgatory power here is so much stronger than in the 6th purgatory. As soon as he arrived in the 7th purgatory, Nietian felt the intense purgatory power rushing toward him. Unfortunately, Zichio couldn't come here. Otherwise, cultivating here would be much faster than in the 6th purgatory. Let's go to the 8th purgatory. Nietian looked around. There were less than 10 people in the 7th purgatory, and there was nothing else worth paying attention to. Hence, he decided to go straight to the 8th purgatory. Soon, he arrived at the top of the 7th purgatory. You want to enter the 8th purgatory? At this moment, an extremely cold voice was heard. Yes. Nietian nodded and turned to look at Emoguchin. He had already noticed the latter, but he ignored him. He didn't expect the usually cold Emoguchin to take the initiative to speak to him. The 8th purgatory is extremely dangerous. Are you sure you're ready? Emoguchin frowned and asked cold. It's okay. I just want to look around. I won't be staying in the 8th purgatory for too long. My target is the 9th purgatory. Nietian said with a faint smile. The 9th purgatory? Emoguchin's gaze froze. Then he laughed. But his laughter was cold and even a little disdainful. Is there a problem? The corners of Nietian's mouth twitched, but he wasn't angry. You think you're the number 1 genius of the 7 purgatories just because you defeated by 2 Gene? Emoguchin retracted his cold smile and said, Plus, so what if you really are the number 1 genius of the 7 purgatories? The 9th purgatory is the forbidden ground of the Heavenly Prison Dragon sect. How can anyone enter it? Until now, the Heavenly Prison Dragon sect has opened countless times, but those who have entered the 9th purgatory are less than 5. Don't you think it's funny that you want to enter the 9th purgatory? Then, he turned around, as if he didn't want to talk to Nietian anymore. But he didn't leave right away. Funny? Nietian twitched his lips and asked back, You think it's funny? Chapter 4770. Nietian glanced at Emoguchin and realized that the latter was only boasting when he thought he would not be able to enter the 9th hell. Emoguchin stared at Nietian in silence for a while. Before he spoke, Even if you can enter the 9th hell, do you know what kind of place it is? What do you mean? Nietian frowned when he saw that Emoguchin was trying to say something. The 9th hell was the highest floor of the Heavenly Prison Dragon Gate. What else could it be? Judging from Emoguchin's expression, he seemed to be hinting that the 9th hell was hiding some kind of secret. The 9th hell is extremely dangerous. I advise you not to go. Emoguchin glanced at Nietian and said in a cold tone after a long silence. He turned around and left after finishing his sentence. What was he trying to say? Nietian frowned and felt even more confused. It was obvious that Emoguchin had something to say, but he did not say it, as if it was a taboo topic. What exactly was it that made Emoguchin so afraid? Screw it, if the 9th hell is hiding some kind of secret, I'll know once I go in. Nietian decided not to overthink it. He took a deep breath and used the chaos flame to tear open the space barrier of the 8th hell, successfully entering it. The presence of the hell force here is even stronger. As soon as Nietian entered the 8th hell, he immediately felt the surrounding hell force becoming stronger. Bang! However, before he could stabilize his footing, he suddenly felt a strong force coming from above him, causing him to frown. A intense soared into the sky. Bang! A muffled sound rang out as a huge boulder over Nietian's head exploded and turned into dust that scattered in all directions. Nietian raised his head and was stunned when he looked into the sky. Floating boulders were everywhere in the 8th hell. The smaller ones were a few meters wide, while the bigger ones were dozens of meters wide. It was a spectacular sight from afar. However, after taking a closer look, Nyetian soon discovered that although the boulders were arranged in a messy manner, they seemed to be arranged in a certain pattern, as if they were some sort of formation. Is this the danger that Mo Guchen mentioned? Nyetian frowned and muttered to himself. Mo Guchen had just said that the eighth hell was equally dangerous. Could it be that the stone array in front of him was the danger he was talking about? The quality of these stones is extraordinary. They are much harder than ordinary refined iron. Nyetian didn't let his guard down. After sensing for a long time, he couldn't help but frown. The huge stone formation before them was extremely huge. It was impossible to see through it in a short period of time. However, if he were to force his way through the formation, he did not know what kind of dangers he would face. With Nyetian's strength, it would be no problem for him to block the boulder. But in this way, it would definitely consume a great deal of his energy. If other dangers were to appear, it would not be good. Furthermore, Nyetian had a faint premonition that this huge stone array was extremely likely not as simple as it looked on the surface. Give it a try. Nyetian looked for a long time, but couldn't find any clues. In the end, he decided to take the risk. He took a deep breath, and a pair of starry wings appeared on his back. His speed was extremely fast. He stepped on the boulder like a cheetah leaping in the mountains. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the middle area of the eighth hell. Did I overestimate this huge stone array? Nyetian couldn't help but frown when he wasn't attacked by the boulder. However, he didn't dare to stop and continued to rush toward the top of the eighth hell. Boom! After a while, just as Nyetian was about to reach the top of the eighth hell, he suddenly felt a terrifying pressure approaching, causing his eyes to darken. It's here after all. He turned around and saw a huge boulder hurtling toward him at an extremely fast speed. Without hesitation, he swung the sky sword and shattered the boulder. Boom! 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 However, just as he swung his sword, thunderous sounds came from all around him. All the boulders around him started moving and pounced at him like giant beasts. 8 barren slashes. Nyetian's eyes darkened slightly. He grunted and slashed with his sword. Sword intent surged in all directions, and countless boulders were instantly shattered. If this is the only formation, it's far from enough to stop me. The corner of Nyetian's lips curled up. He moved and rushed toward the sky. Bang! However, at that moment, a muffled sound was heard. Before he could react, he felt his entire body sinking and falling straight down. After falling for a few hundred meters, Nyetian finally stabilized his body with the help of the starry wings. He looked up into the sky, and the scene that entered his eyes made his expression change. He saw a stone golem that was a few hundred meters tall, staring straight at him with 2 pitch-black eyes. These boulders have automatically formed a stone golem. Nyetian's eyes darkened. He immediately understood, and his expression darkened. It seemed like he did not underestimate the giant boulder formation at all. Luckily, his martial body was strong enough to withstand the punch from the stone golem. Otherwise, even if he managed to survive, he would at least lose a layer of skin. Roar! Meanwhile, the stone golem let out a furious roar like a wild beast, as if it was provoking Nyetian. Very well. Nyetian let out a laugh and said, I would like to see how a pile of rocks like you is going to stop me. Following this, his body was surrounded by sword intent as the 9th layer Heaven Illusion Force was unleashed. Streams of Heaven Illusion Sacred Force surged in all directions like a surging tide. Bang! 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 Instantly, the boulders within 100 meters were unable to withstand the impact of the Heaven Illusion Sacred Force and shattered into pieces. World-devouring sword dragon. Nyetian let out a groan and slashed forward. A terrifying sword intent surged out and formed a giant dragon that was 100 meters long in the sky, charging straight at the stone golem. Bang! At the same time, the stone golem threw a punch at him with the force of a landslide. Bang! In the next instant, the 2 forces collided, resulting in a deafening explosion. It felt like the entire 8th hell was shaking. Although the stone golem was extremely sturdy, it was unable to withstand the force of the sword dragon and shattered into pieces in the air. My chance. Nietion's eyes darkened. He flapped his wings and dashed toward the stone golem like a ray of light. Around him were a few more stone golems that were even larger than before. They were all charging at him. Open. Nietion, however, didn't give them the slightest chance. The primal chaos flame in his hand condensed into a sharp blade that ripped open the spatial ward of the 8th hell. Then, like a fish, he leaped into the 9th hell. As soon as Nietion entered the 9th hell, he could feel a powerful force pressing down on him, causing his expression to change. However, in the next moment, before he could react, he felt another force appearing and blocking the overwhelming pressure. Don't talk. He steadied himself and was about to see what was going on when he heard a soft voice coming from behind him. Night Emperor. Nietion did not turn around. He could tell that it was the Night Emperor, Yi Wuxiang's voice. The Night Emperor of the 7 Knights underworld tribe had arrived at the 9th hell before him. Chapter 4771. Nietion turned around and looked at Yi Wuxiang in surprise. He didn't expect Yi Wuxiang to come to the 9th hell before him. Yi Wuxiang didn't say anything and pointed above him. Nietion looked up, and his expression flickered. He saw that above his head, there was actually a transparent barrier, like a mirror, clear and sparkling, without the slightest impurity. The strangest thing was that there were people on a shield, and there were many of them. Why would there be people at the top of the 9th hell? Yi Wuxiang still didn't say anything. He waved his hand and gestured for Nietion to follow him. The two of them moved quickly and soon arrived at a valley, entering a cave. Phew! Yi Wuxiang carefully sensed and let out a long breath after confirming that there were no abnormalities. Yuan, what's going on? Nietion was surprised as he stared at Yi Wuxiang and asked, why would there be so many people in the 9th hell? Brother Nye, do you know where the 9th hell of the Heavenly Prison Dragon sect is? Yi Wuxiang asked in a deep voice. His tone and eyes were filled with a hint of playfulness. I don't know. Nietion shook his head. Mo Guchen had asked him the same question before, which made him feel puzzled. But now that Yi Wuxiang asked again, it undoubtedly meant that there was another world in the 9th hell. Do you know who the people we see above us are? Yi Wuxiang didn't answer and asked the second question. Yi Wang, what are you trying to say? Nietion frowned. He wasn't interested in listening to Yi Wang's riddles and asked directly. Mystic realm. Yi Wuxiang's eyes dimmed. After a few seconds of silence, he said 2 words. Mystic realm. Nietion frowned, and his expression flickered. It was the first time he heard of these 2 words. Could it be another world outside of the heavenly sacred realm, like the prison realm? The person who appeared above us is a profound world martial artist. Yi Wuxiang seemed to have guessed what was on Nietion's mind. He said, the mystic world is a world above the heaven saint world and the prison realm. The overall strength of the mystic world's martial artists is above the heaven saint worlds and the prison realm's martial artists. You know about the sacred heavens realm? Nietion's eyes slightly narrowed, and he looked at Yi Wuxiang in surprise. He didn't expect the other party to know about the all-heaven sacred world. The sacred world of all heavens and the 7 great purgatory realms were independent worlds. The people of the 2 worlds did not know of each other's existence. Only a small number of people knew about both the saint realm and the prison realm. Aren't you from the sacred world? Yi Wuxiang nodded. His reaction was very calm. You said that the Xian world is above the saint realm and prison realm. What do you mean? Nietion's eyes darkened slightly, but he did not continue to ask. Instead, he turned his attention to the profound world. He was very curious about what kind of world the profound world was. From what Yi Wuxiang said, it seemed that the profound world was a much larger world than the sacred heavens realm and the 7 great purgatory realms. I don't know much about the profound world. I only read some records about it in an ancient book. Yi Wuxiang took a deep breath and said, I learned from the book that the 9th purgatory of the heavenly prison dragon gate is a passage that connects the profound world and the prison realm. Out of curiosity, I entered the 9th purgatory. After that, I met you. A passage between the two realms? Nie Tian couldn't help but frown after listening to Yi Wuxiang's words. It seemed that Yi Wuxiang wasn't sure that the person on the mirror-like barrier was from the profound world. Everything was just his guess. There's someone. At this moment, Yi Wuxiang suddenly sensed something and his expression changed. Nie Tian frowned, but he didn't feel anything strange. Whoosh! In the next moment, Nie Tian opened his demonic eye. Just when he wanted to sense, he saw a figure dashing into the valley like a ray of light and entering the cave. Bang! But then, the figure crashed into the stone wall of the cave and fell down. She's injured. Only then did Nie Tian see the figure clearly. It was a green-clothed woman, covered in wounds and on the verge of death. Save me. The green-clothed woman looked at Nie Tian and Yi Wuxiang and spoke with difficulty, but she used up all her strength and fainted. Nie Tian and Yi Wuxiang exchanged a glance, speechless. What's going on? Where did this woman come from? Why is she so heavily injured? Save her! Yi Wuxiang's eyes trembled. He took a step forward, and endless prison power gushed out, enveloping the green-clothed woman and stabilizing her breathing. There's someone. At that moment, Nie Tian sensed that a few powerful auras were rapidly approaching the valley. His expression flickered. His expression changed. I'll hide her first. Yi Wuxiang immediately reacted and brought the green-clothed woman into the depths of the cave. Nie Tian glanced at the ground and immediately burned the bloodstains. It's here. A few moments later, several figures appeared in the valley. One of them shouted as he looked around the valley. They were young men, led by a young man in luxurious clothes who looked to be about 26 or 27 years old. He had a handsome face and an elegant temperament. He looked refined and courteous, giving off the impression of a modest gentleman. Young master, Green Spider's aura disappeared here. Beside the elegant man, a servant with a mustache spoke carefully, afraid that he would displease the elegant man. She's heavily injured. She can't have run far. Lin Qingyuan said in a deep voice. The coldness in his eyes diluted the elegant temperament on his face, making him look somewhat fierce. Young master, there's a cave over there. At this moment, someone found the cave and shouted in surprise. Come out. Lin Qingyuan raised an eyebrow and said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, a silver-haired figure slowly walked out from the cave. It was none other than Nie Tian. Lin Qingyuan saw that the person who walked out was an unfamiliar face. The latter's aura was also something he had never seen before. His face darkened and he asked, Who are you? Why are you here? I'd like to ask you the same question. Nie Tian smiled and replied in an indifferent tone. He could feel a vast and powerful aura from Lin Qingyuan's body. But this aura was something he had never seen before. It was an aura that was different from Saint Power and Hell Power. Could it be that this guy in front of him was the mystic world martial artist that Yi Wuxiang mentioned? Kid, how dare you speak to our young master like that? Do you want to die? Without waiting for Lin Qingyuan to speak, the mustached man next to him took a step forward, and with a roar, he threw a palm at the air. Bang! Nie Tian frowned and reacted quickly. His entire body lit up with astral soul armor and blocked the palm. But his figure also took a few steps back because of this. This guy, he's so strong. Nie Tian steadied himself and looked at the mustached man with a gloomy gaze. He was shocked. His cultivation was at level 9 heavenly perception, but his martial body was comparable to a pinnacle heavenly martial expert. The mustached man looked ordinary, but he was able to knock him back with a palm. His strength was terrifying. Chapter 4772. Heavenly Prison Dragon Gate. 9th Prison Heaven, outside of a cave. Yo! The mustached man couldn't help but exclaim in surprise as he repelled Nie Tian with a palm strike. Brat, I didn't expect you to be so strong. I didn't expect you to be so strong either. Nie Tian smiled as he stared at the mustached man with a cold glint in his eyes. Die. How could the mustached man not hear the provocation in Nie Tian's words? He roared in anger and struck out with his palm again, causing the void around him to sink. Break. Nietion's eyes narrowed as he unsheathed the sky sword. The air was immediately filled with killing intent as the sword, chi, turned into waves that swept everything in its path. Bang! In the next moment, a muffled explosion sounded in the air. The mustache man clearly didn't expect Nietion to be so strong. He screamed and retreated a few meters before he could stabilize himself. Nietion, however, didn't move in the slightest. He was wreathed in fierce sword chi, which was as sharp as a sword. How is this possible? The mustached man stared at Nietion in shock and disbelief. You are a martial artist from the heavenly saint realm? Lin Qingyuan could tell that Nietion's aura was different from the prison realm's martial artists. You are the legendary martial artist from the mystic world? Nietion's eyebrows furrowed. Lin Qingyuan's cold, arrogant, and sinister gaze made him very uncomfortable. A martial artist from the heavenly saint realm actually knows about the mystic world after coming to the prison realm. Lin Qingyuan looked at Nietion as if he were sizing up an interesting, lowly being. With a smile, he muttered, "Interesting. Young master, there's no need to waste time with this brat. Let me kill him." The mustache man's face was gloomy. The profound energy in his body was boiling, and there was a burning aura in the surrounding space. You're no match for him. Back off. Lin Qingyuan stopped the mustache man and said with a cold expression. His voice was very cold, but when it fell into the mustached man's ears, it was like angry thunder. The mustached man was very unwilling, but he didn't dare to disobey Lin Qingyuan, so he could only retreat to the side. What? The servants can't do it, but you, the young master, are going to do it personally? Nie Tianling stared coldly at Lin Qingyuan, not afraid in the slightest. Instead, he taunted him. Kid, your strength is not bad. I don't want to kill you. Lin Qingyuan wasn't angry at all. He only said lightly, I'm chasing after a woman. Her aura has disappeared from here. As long as you hand her over, I can spare your life. What if I don't hand it over? Nietion didn't explain anything and just sneered. As expected, Lin Qingyuan's group was here to chase after the injured green-clothed woman. With Lin Qingyuan's arrogant personality, even if Nietion denied it and said that he had never seen the girl in green before, the former would not believe him. Since that was the case, he might as well admit it. He also wanted to see how strong this young master from the legendary Xian world was. There is a limit to my patience. Don't try to challenge me. Lin Qingyuan's face turned cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. We're going to fight anyway. Why bother with all this nonsense? Nietion sneered again. The sky sword swept through the air, and the sword light shone brightly like a waterfall. You're courting death. Lin Qingyuan's face darkened. He couldn't control himself anymore. With a roar, Xian Qi surged, and mysterious runes appeared in the air. In his hand, a long saber glowed with purple light. What a strong saber aura! Nietion's eyes darkened. He felt an invisible saber aura, suppressing his sword aura. This young master from the Xian world was indeed not simple. One saber, and I'll take your life. Lin Qingyuan snorted and swung his saber. The saber aura spread out 100 meters, and the momentum was like a tsunami, crashing towards Nietion. Nietion's eyes darkened. The sky sword moved against the momentum, and the sword aura swept out. Bang! The saber was forceful, and the sword was sharp. The moment the saber and the sword collided, a loud explosion was heard. The saber aura and the sword aura turned into endless waves, sweeping through the surroundings. Nietion's body swayed, and he staggered back a few steps. Behind him, half of the mountain wall had been forcefully cut open, forming a mountain stream. On the other hand, Lin Qingyuan didn't move at all. Instead, the saber aura was boundless, and it surged like a raging river. But his face was dark, and he couldn't hide the shock in his eyes when he looked at Nietion. Even though he didn't use his full strength in that attack, it was enough to kill a Sky Martial Realm cultivator. Nietion was only a Sky Perception Realm cultivator, but he was able to block the attack without being injured. This was beyond his expectations. It seemed that Nietion didn't use his full strength when he fought with the mustache man. That attack of yours is strong, but it's far from enough to kill me. Nye Tion's body shook, and a wave of sword aura shot out, cutting a boulder in front of him. Very good. Lin Qingyuan smiled. I didn't expect there to be a genius like you in the all-heaven sacred world. I, Lin Qingyuan, have underestimated you. Come. Nye Tion's battle intent surged, and sword intent surged from his body. Being forced back just now had aroused his competitive spirit. He really wanted to see just how strong Lin Qingyuan was. Kid, I won't bully you. If you can take 2 more attacks from me, I'll leave. Lin Qingyuan said in a deep voice. His expression was determined, and his eyes were vicious. He had to take Nye Tion's life with 2 attacks. Is that so? Nye Tianling smirked. He was just testing Lin Qingyuan's strength, but he didn't expect Lin Qingyuan to treat him as a weakling. Second attack. Lin Qingyuan roared, and saber aura surged from his body. It was as if he wasn't a person, but a boundless sea of saber aura. Very good. Nye Tian felt the pressure in the air increase, but he wasn't afraid. Instead, he smiled and sword aura surged from his body, and the roar of a dragon echoed in the air. Idiot! Lin Qingyuan frowned, and his face was filled with rage. He was a saber user, and Nye Tian was a swordsman. But Nye Tian gave up on the sharpness of his sword, and took the initiative to fight him with his aura. The saber was forceful, and the sword was sharp. How could sword aura compete with saber aura? Nye Tian was using his weakness to attack his opponent's strength. If this wasn't idiocy, what was? Do you really think that your saber aura is stronger than my sword aura? Nye Tian, however, laughed wildly. His cold words were filled with arrogance. Arrogant. Lin Qingyuan's expression changed. He was completely enraged by Nye Tian. The purple saber slashed down, and the sky seemed to sink as if the world was about to collapse. Judging from Nye Tian's words, he was obviously looking down on him and didn't take him seriously at all. What right did an ant from the all-heaven sacred world have to look down on a genius from the profound world? World-devouring sword dragon. The corner of Nye Tian's mouth twitched as he sensed the overwhelming pressure. His sword intent soared into the heavens. Sword light burst forth from his body, and an unstoppable momentum surged out of him like a broken dam. Boom! Boom! In the air, the saber was like a mountain, and the sword was like a dragon, crashing into each other. Chapter 4773. Bang! Within the valley, a muffled sound could be heard, as if the sky was falling. Boom, boom, boom. The surging wild power surged like a stormy sea, spreading in all directions crazily. Nye Tian was in the middle of the waves, but he was as heavy as a mountain. His feet were like the roots of a tree, not moving an inch. Bang! 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 On the other side, Lin Qingyuan's body swayed, and he could no longer support himself. He took 3 steps back before he could stabilize himself. How is this possible? After the waves dissipated, Lin Qingyuan looked at Nye Tian in shock, his face full of disbelief. In the second exchange, when the saber and sword collided, he was actually knocked back by Nye Tian. In the first exchange, he clearly had the upper hand. The second exchange, however, was far more powerful than the first exchange. Moreover, Nye Tian had given up on the sharpness of his sword to fight him head-on. But even so, why was the one who was pushed back Lin Qingyuan? Lin Qingyuan, right? Nye Tian looked at Lin Qingyuan's shocked reaction, and his lips curled into a smile. Your second exchange is not that great. You. Lin Qingyuan's eyes trembled, as if there was a fire burning in them. He was the genius of the Lin clan. When had he ever been looked down upon like this? Come on, the third exchange. Nye Tian was as calm as ever, and he pointed his sword at Lin Qingyuan, full of provocation. Kid, you asked for it. Lin Qingyuan's eyes trembled, and the blood in his eyes made him look like a beast, wanting to skin Nye Tian alive. Boom! In the next moment, an unstoppable aura exploded from his body, and an endless amount of saber intent condensed into a large black saber, covering his entire body. Mystic Ean's saber. The mustached man and the others saw this, and their expressions changed as they cried out in shock. Lin Xingyuan had taken out the mystic saber, which meant that he was going to kill. This aura, it's so evil. Tian furrowed his eyebrows. He could sense an extremely strong, evil aura from the mystic saber, as if there were countless evil spirits imprisoned in the saber. Kid, I originally didn't want to kill you, but since you're courting death, don't blame me for this. Lin Xingyuan said darkly. Perhaps it was due to the influence of the black saber, but his face had become extremely malevolent, and his facial features were all twisted together. You want to kill me with just this? What a joke. Niet Tianling sneered, his eyes flashing with an even more extreme provocation. Courting death. Lin Xingyuan felt humiliated and went completely crazy. With a roar, the black saber suddenly moved. Boom! The surrounding void suddenly rumbled, as if the heavens and earth were unable to withstand this power and were on the verge of collapsing. 12 heaven-slaying sword formation, activate. Niet Tian's eyes turned cold, and a fiend god reverse mark appeared at the corner of his eyes. His pupils turned black like two abysses. Boom! 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 He lightly stepped on the ground, and 12 terrifying sword shadows shot into the sky with him as the center. Rumble! Suddenly, the entire space in the valley seemed to explode, and the clouds in the sky were all shattered. What a powerful aura! The mustache man and the others trembled violently. The aura that Niet Tian emitted was too terrifying, and they almost could not bear it. They never thought that such a young Holy Realm martial artist would have such strength. Young master! The mustached man's eyes trembled, and he could not help but shout. When Lin Xingyuan took out the mystic saber, he thought that the battle was over and that Niet Tian would definitely die. But now, he began to worry about Lin Xingyuan. With Niet Tian's aura, Lin Xingyuan might not be a match for him. It was obvious that Niet Tian had been holding back, but Lin Xingyuan did not see it. Die! But Lin Xingyuan's eyes were already red with anxiety. Once the mystic saber was drawn, there would definitely be blood. How could he stop now? Boom! He took a step forward, and the mystic saber moved, drawing a black line in the air. It was like a black dragon that had solidified, and it pressed down on Niet Tian. Bang! 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 Before the saber even landed, the ground had already begun to crack, and countless ravines appeared. The entire valley shook violently. Reckless! Niet Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and a cold, killing intent surged in his eyes. He originally only wanted to teach Lin Xingyuan a lesson, but the latter's killing intent was too strong, so he could not be blamed. Boom! 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 In the next moment, in the air, 12 huge sword shadows gathered like giant dragons, forming a dazzling sword shadow. It was like a sword of heaven's punishment, slashing everything in its path. Bang! The saber and the sword collided, and the heavens and earth shook. Boom, boom, boom. Chi, chi, chi. Bang, bang, bang. Endless sounds of explosions rang out, and from the center of the collision, it spread wildly in all directions. Lin Xingyuan was hit by the impact, and after a few seconds, he finally could not take it anymore. With a cry of pain, he was sent flying. Young master! The mustached man saw this scene and screamed. He was actually loyal, and he rushed towards Lin Xingyuan to protect his master. After a long time, the terrifying turbid waves finally settled. Lin Xingyuan and the mustached man leaned against a huge rock. Both of them were badly mutilated, and they only had one last breath left. On the other hand, Niet Tian stood in the same place, and he was as sharp as a sword, without a single injury. You! Pooh! Lin Xingyuan's eyes trembled, and there was an unconcealable shock and fear in his eyes. He looked at Niet Tian, and just as he was about to speak, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Young master, are you all right? In comparison, the mustached man's injuries were slightly lighter, and he held on to Lin Xingyuan and asked nervously. If he had not stepped forward at the critical moment and blocked part of the impact for Lin Xingyuan, the latter would have been a corpse by now. But he did this not because he was truly loyal, because he was Lin Xingyuan's personal servant. If Lin Qingyuan died, the Lin family would not let him live. What about me? The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and he asked arrogantly. Pooh! Lin Qingyuan looked at Nie Tian, especially the arrogance and disdain in the latter's eyes. His blood boiled, and he spat out another mouthful of blood. Kid, don't go too far. The mustached man took a step forward and said arrogantly, Do you know what kind of person my young master is? In my eyes, he's just an idiot who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I'm not interested. Nie Tian laughed again, trying to provoke Lin Qingyuan. Stinking brat, you. Pooh! As expected, Lin Qingyuan's eyes narrowed, and he took a step forward. Just as he was about to curse, he spat out another mouthful of blood. Then his vision went black, and he fell to the ground. Young master, seeing this, the mustached man and the others all cried out in pain, and went forward to help Lin Qingyuan up. Get out of here before he's completely dead. Nie Tianling smiled coldly, and ignored these people, and walked back into the cave. Chapter 4774. Brat, the Lin clan will not let today's matter go. The mustached man looked at Nie Tian's back disappearing into the cave before he reacted and roared furiously. Nie Tian didn't care about Lin Qingyuan and the others at all. After entering the cave, he followed the traces left by Yi Wushang and soon arrived at a spacious area. I didn't expect that there would be a whole new world in this cave. Nie Tian couldn't help but let out a cry of joy when he saw the light before him. This cave seemed to be a passageway that connected to another world. As far as the eye could see, there was an endless mountain range outside the cave. Brother Nie? Yi Wushang saw Nie Tian and shouted anxiously, This lady's aura is getting weaker and weaker. Come take a look. Okay, Nie Tian replied, and came to the side of Yi Wushang and the azure-clothed lady. There are two streams of chaotic true qi in her body that are hard to control. If we can't suppress them, I'm afraid she won't live for long. Nie Tian's face darkened when he sensed the azure-clothed lady. The azure-clothed lady looked like she was in her 20s, and her aura wasn't strong. Who was it that attacked her so heavily? The two streams of chaotic true qi were like two sharp blades that kept attacking the azure-clothed lady's body, causing great damage to her limbs and meridians. Then what should we do? Yi Wushang frowned anxiously, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Nie Tian raised his head and looked at Yi Wushang. He didn't expect the latter to care so much about this azure-clothed lady. Brother Yi, try to stabilize her heart meridian. Leave the rest to me. Nie Tian opened his devil eye and carefully observed for a while before saying to Yi Wushang, Okay. Yi Wushang nodded and took a deep breath. A vigorous force was released from his body. It was endless, but not oppressive. It enveloped the azure-clothed lady and protected her heart meridian. Very good. Nie Tian sensed for a moment and confirmed that the azure-clothed lady's heart meridian was stable. He didn't hesitate anymore and pointed at the azure-clothed lady's forehead. Whoosh! Whoosh! Instantly, two completely different sword energies charged into the green-clothed woman's body from her forehead. Bang, bang, bang. Nie Tian's eyes darkened slightly. He could clearly see two streams of sword qi and two streams of true qi colliding with each other inside the green-clothed woman's body. He was going to use two streaks of sword qi to cut off the two streams of chaotic true qi. At the same time, the green-robed woman's heart meridian was attacked, and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Fortunately, she had Yi Wushang's prison power to protect her heart meridian. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to withstand such an impact. A moment later, the green-robed woman's condition gradually stabilized, and she fell into a deep sleep. Are you okay? Nie Tian let out a long breath. Seeing Yi Wushang's forehead full of sweat, he asked with a smile. I'm fine. Yi Wushang smiled awkwardly. He had just consumed too much power. He didn't expect the two streams of true qi in the green-clothed woman's body to be so powerful. However, Nie Tian was actually able to forcefully sever the two streams of true qi with just two streams of sword qi. His ability was truly unimaginable. It's good that you're fine. Nietion smiled faintly. He stood up and looked at the mountain range in the distance. He couldn't help but exclaim, I didn't expect the ninth hell of the heavenly prison dragon sect to hide such a place. The creation of heaven and earth is boundlessly mysterious. Yi Wuxiang also stood up and nodded. He didn't expect this to happen either. If the green-clothed woman hadn't appeared, they wouldn't have come to the depths of the cave. Brother Yi, I've been wanting to ask you some questions. Nietion glanced at Yi Wuxiang and smiled. There's only the two of us here now. I hope you can answer my questions. You want to ask if the Underworld Emperor, the patriarch of the Seven Knights Underworld race, is related to the Underworld Emperor you met? Is that so? Yi Wuxiang smiled and said directly, Yes. Nietion nodded with a smile. That Underworld Emperor is very important to me. Please answer my questions, Brother Yi. The two Underworld Emperors are the same person. Yi Wuxiang finally spoke after a long silence. The same person? Nietion's eyes narrowed, and he asked in surprise, You're saying that the Underworld Emperor of the Seven Knights Underworld race and the Underworld Emperor of the Nine-Li Demon Realm are the same person? Yes. Yi Wuxiang had clearly expected this reaction from Nietion, and he nodded. How is that possible? Nietion exclaimed in shock. The Underworld Emperor of the Seven Knights Underworld race was a prison realm martial artist, and the Underworld Emperor of the Nine-Li Demon Realm was a Saint World martial artist. How could the two be the same person? To be more precise, the Underworld Emperor, is the Nethersal doppelganger of my patriarch. Yi Wuxiang took another deep breath and said, As the patriarch of my race, the Underworld Emperor has cultivated a powerful secret art, the art of Nethersal. The art of Nethersal can create many Nethersal doppelgangers. A long time ago, the Underworld Emperor discovered a passage that connects to another world. He released his Nethersal doppelgangers through this passage. So, the Underworld Emperor I met was only a Nethersal doppelganger of the Seven Knights Underworld Emperor. Before Yi Wuxiang could finish, Nietion's eyes trembled and he asked, Yes. Yi Wuxiang nodded and said with a wry smile, I don't know how many Nethersal doppelgangers the Underworld Emperor has created. I'm not even sure if the Underworld Emperor you met was the same Nethersal doppelganger. The only thing I'm sure of is that the Underworld Emperor is currently retrieving the Nethersal doppelganger. Retrieving the Nethersal doppelganger? Nietion frowned and exclaimed again. What does that mean? The Underworld Emperor is still in a deep slumber. Yi Wuxiang's eyes narrowed, and he said, This is also the reason why the Seven Knights Underworld race retired. However, with the return of the Nethersal doppelganger, the Underworld Emperor will slowly wake up from his slumber. Then, he looked at Nietion with unconcealable worry in his eyes and said, I've been observing the Underworld Emperor recently. I don't know why, but I can vaguely sense a dangerous aura from the Underworld Emperor. I can't be sure what kind of effect the Underworld Emperor will have in the Seven Knights Underworld race, the Seven Prison Realms, and even the All Heavens Sacred World. So you're very uneasy. Nietion gradually understood and looked at Yi Wuxiang. Yes. After Yi Wuxiang nodded, he let out a long breath and said, The art of imprisoning soul is a kind of forbidden secret technique. The Emperor of the Underworld doesn't dare to practice it rashly, and they won't let the imprisoning soul doppelganger out to the outside world. I'm not sure if the Underworld Emperor after the Nethersal doppelganger returns will still be the Underworld Emperor of the Seven Knights Underworld race. Nietion's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. Could the return of the Nethersal doppelganger affect the Underworld Emperor? Brother Yi, after the 12 Pillars project is over, I hope you can come back with me to the Seven Knights Underworld race. Yi Wuxiang looked at Nietion and said solemnly, Me? Nietion frowned and said in surprise, What can I do if I go to the Seven Knights Underworld race? If the Saintess trusts you, then I trust you. Yi Wuxiang said solemnly with a cold gaze. Chapter 4775. The Saintess believes me? Nietion frowned. The image of the Saintess of the Seven Knights, Nether Clan, appeared in his mind. Who was this Saintess? Why would she believe him? Yi Wuxiang looked at Nietion. He knew the latter was confused, but he didn't say anything. Cough, cough, cough. At this moment, a dry cough came from his side. The girl in azure had woken up. Nie Tian and Yi Wushang looked at each other and immediately walked over. Who are you? The cyan-clothed woman looked at Nie Tian and Yi Wushang like a frightened kitten. Her face was full of horror, and she subconsciously curled up together. Miss, don't be afraid. The person chasing you has left. Yi Wushang's voice was gentle, but the mask on his face still scared the girl into retreating. Miss, what's your name? Why is Lin Qingyuan chasing you? Nie Tian smiled and asked. You know Lin Qingyuan? The girl in azure's eyes trembled as she looked at Nie Tian in shock. Of course, I was the one who beat him away. Nie Tian smiled again and tried to calm the green-robed woman down. You beat him away? The girl in azure's eyes trembled again. Her frightened face calmed down a lot, but she was still doubtful. Really? Of course. Nie Tian's lips curled up. Otherwise, the person you're facing right now would be Lin Qingyuan. Oh, the girl in azure furrowed her brows. After a moment of silence, she nodded and said, My name is Qingman Yi. That person called Lin Qingyuan is my fiancé. Fiancé? Nie Tian and Yi Wushang were taken aback at the same time. A fiancé chasing after his fiancée? What was going on? Lin Qingyuan is a bastard. He hooked up with his cousin, and I ran into him. He wanted to kill me to silence me. Qingman Yi's eyes suddenly darkened. She subconsciously clenched her fists with deep hatred. I see. Nie Tian suddenly understood. He thought for a moment and asked, Miss Qing, how did you get here? I don't know either. Qing Mani calmed down, shook her head, and said with a blank expression, I ran out of a forest in the backyard of the Lin mansion, entered a cave, and then inexplicably arrived here. As she spoke, she cautiously looked at Nie Tian and Yi Wushang and asked, Young masters, I feel that the environment here is a little different from the world I've been in before. Could it be that I've come to another world? This is the prison realm. Nie Tian smiled and said, The world you were in before should be the profound world. From the looks of it, the cave that Qing Mani entered was a tunnel that connected the prison realm and the profound world. Yes. The world I'm in is called the Boundless Realm. Qing Mani stood up and said excitedly, There are 9 continents in the Boundless Realm, and each continent is extremely vast and immeasurable. I've heard from the elders in my family that there are other worlds outside of the Boundless Realm. Who would have thought that it's true? Nie Tian and Yi Wushang looked at Qing Mani and couldn't help but smile. This little girl was really a happy-go-lucky person. She had just escaped from her fiancé's pursuit, but she was still so cheerful. Oh no, how do I go back? But in the next moment, Qing Mani's expression changed, and she exclaimed in shock. Do you still remember that cave? Nie Tian's lips twitched as he asked. I don't remember. Qing Mani was embarrassed. She only cared about running and didn't remember how she got here. Miss Qing, don't worry. You can stay in the prison realm for a while. Yi Wushang nodded slightly and looked at Qing Mani with gentle eyes. All right. I've never been here anyway. I could take a look around. Qing Mani smiled, and her eyes narrowed into crescent moons. Brother Yi, Miss Qing has just woken up and needs time to recover. You stay here and accompany her. I'll go out and take a look. Nie Tian looked at the two and smiled faintly. Then his figure flashed, and he rushed out. This person is so fast. Qing Mani didn't even see Nie Tian's figure clearly. Her pretty face was filled with shock and disbelief. Could it be that the prison realm's martial artists were stronger than the Boundless Realm? The hell energy here is much stronger than the hell heaven below. After leaving the cave, Nie Tian shuttled through the dense forest. He was shocked by the hell energy in the air. No wonder these prison realm geniuses risked their lives to enter the higher hell heaven. Above the 9th hell heaven is the 3rd hell heaven. I wonder what's there. Nie Tian looked up into the sky, and the idea of entering the 10th hell heaven appeared in his mind. With Yi Wushang accompanying Qing Mani, she should be fine. Moreover, he seemed extra by their side. He might as well leave and take a look at the 10th hell heaven. The heavenly prison dragon gate had a total of 12 hell heavens. However, it was said that no one had entered the 12th hell heaven before. Let's go and take a look then. With this thought in mind, Nie Tian no longer hesitated, and he rushed towards the 9th hell heaven. Boom! But just as he was about to reach the top of the ninth hell heaven, he felt a terrifying pressure bearing down on him. Huh? Nyetian frowned and activated the astral soul armor to resist the terrifying pressure. However, the oppressive force was so strong that it forced Nyetian to sink hundreds of meters before he managed to regain his balance. Who's there? Come out. Nyetian steadied himself and looked up into the sky. However, he didn't see anyone. Even when he opened his demonic eye, he didn't notice anything strange. What's going on? Nyetian frowned. Could there be a natural barrier above the ninth hell heaven, preventing him from reaching the top? Let's try again. After thinking for a moment, the astral soul wings appeared behind him. When the wings spread out, they were 100 meters long. He looked like a giant bird as he soared into the sky. Back off! But at this moment, a deep voice resounded from the sky. The pressure was extremely strong. Kaboom! Then, a bolt of lightning struck down, drawing a blazing white trajectory in the air, directly descending towards Nyetian. Bang! Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Nyetian couldn't dodge in time and was directly struck by the lightning. Just as he was about to hit the ground, he spread his wings and barely managed to stabilize himself. Good boy, you actually managed to block my palm. At this moment, a figure in black appeared, standing high in the sky. His aura was unfathomable, like a Buddha descending to heaven and earth. What a strong aura! Nyetian frowned. Even though he was 10,000 meters away, he could still feel the tyrannical aura of the other party, causing his heart to tremble. How could there be such a powerful existence in the ninth hell? Young man, I am the Sky Guardian of the ninth hell. The figure in black spoke in a deep voice that shook the heavens and earth. With me here, don't even think about entering the 10th hell. Chapter 4776. Heavenly Guardian? Nyetian stared at the black-robed figure, unable to hide the shock in his eyes. Heavenly Guardian guards the heavenly prison dragon gate. The ninth heaven guardian laughed. Young man, do you know how long the heavenly prison dragon gate has existed? I don't. Nyetian replied indifferently. The heavenly prison dragon gate has existed since the creation of the 7 prisons. The heavenly guardian laughed. As the heavenly guardian, I have met countless heaven's favorites here. You're very capable. Out of all the geniuses I have met, you rank in the top 5. Thank you for your compliment. Nyetian smiled. But the ninth hell is not my final destination. I still have to go to the higher levels. Oh. The ninth sky guardian crossed his arms in front of his chest and said proudly, So you want to challenge me? Please enlighten me. Nyetian stomped his foot and his body shone with starlight. Like the Milky Way, his demeanor was monstrous. Young man, I have underestimated you. The ninth sky guardian of purgatory felt a sense of pressure, but he was not angry. Instead, he burst out laughing in excitement. He had guarded the ninth hell for a long time, and it wasn't easy to meet someone who dared to challenge him. He really wanted to see just how powerful Nyetian was. 8 Baron Blade. Just then, Nyetian growled, and the sword in the sky shot into the sky. The light from the sword spread out for thousands of meters and turned into waves of swords that pressed down on the ninth heaven guardian. Very well. The ninth heaven guardian laughed arrogantly and pressed down with his hand. The terrifying palm slammed down and the surrounding space sank. It was as if it couldn't handle this power and was about to crumble in the next second. Bang! In the next second, the giant palm slammed down and blocked the torrential swords. Hum! The void rumbled, and a terrifying aura spread out in all directions. It was boundlessly violent. Under the huge impact, Nyetian couldn't control himself and was forced to sink for hundreds of meters before he could stabilize himself. Such power! He looked at the ninth guardian of hell. The latter was like a mountain, unmoving. He had fought with many experts in the prison realm, and the ninth hell's heavenly guardian was definitely one of the top 3. Furthermore, he could tell that when the ninth sky guardian of hell made his move, the power of heaven and earth in the area tilted slightly. This meant that the ninth guardian of hell could directly mobilize the power of heaven and earth. Little guy, your sword force is very strong, but it's a pity that it's not as strong as my palm. The ninth heaven guardian looked at Nyet and laughed heartily, seemingly very interested. Really? The corners of Nyet's mouth curled up, and his eyes surged with a fierce fighting spirit. Hua! The next moment, his aura changed as a bone-chilling murderous aura was unleashed instantly, which encapsulated the surroundings like an invisible hand. The aura has changed. When a ninth heaven guardian sensed the change in Nyet's aura, he could not help but exclaim in surprise. However, he was not afraid at all. Instead, he smiled and said, "Interesting. Starfire burning sea." Nyet's figure moved again. The power of the stars was released, and endless starlight enveloped heaven and earth. The sky-shrouding totem was activated. Kaboom! The sword in the sky swept across the sky, and the endless sword intent turned into a sea of fire in the sky. The terrifying sword shadow was like a fire dragon, roaring between heaven and earth. Good timing. Seeing this, the ninth heaven guardian of hell shouted. A vast ocean appeared behind him, and he slammed his palm down. Endless power surged, sweeping everything in its path. Bang! Suddenly, the two extreme forces collided, and a muffled sound came from the sky. The entire world seemed like it was about to explode. Rumble! Chi-chi-chi! The terrifying forces collided, like two giant beasts biting and devouring each other. Bang! A moment later, after a muffled sound, Nyet's figure fell down again. Even though he used the sky-shrouding totem to control the power of heaven and earth, he was no match for the ninth heaven guardian of hell. While Nyet was still in midair, a soft force appeared and caught him in midair. Yi Wuxiang. He steadied himself and turned around. It was the Night Emperor. "Are you all right?" Yi Wuxiang looked at Nyet and raised his head to look at the ninth heaven guardian of hell in the sky. "I'm fine." Nyet smiled faintly and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The ninth heaven guardian of hell was too strong, and there seemed to be no limit. Another brat, and he's from the Seven Knights underworld tribe. The ninth heaven guardian was slightly surprised to see Yi Wuxiang. He smiled. Is the Emperor of Hell finally willing to let someone from the Seven Knights underworld tribe come to the heavenly prison dragon gate? You know the Emperor of Hell? Yi Wuxiang's eyes trembled. Of course. The ninth heaven guardian laughed. When the Emperor of Hell came to the heavenly prison dragon gate, he was still a young man. My battle with him ended in a draw. The Emperor of Hell entered the 10th hell? Nyet frowned and asked. Yes. The ninth heaven guardian nodded. He was able to tie with me, so he is naturally qualified to enter the 10th hell. So, I don't have to defeat you to enter the 10th hell. I just have to tie with you? Nyet smiled and asked. The Emperor of Hell alone can tie. The ninth heaven guardian smiled and looked at Nyet and Yi Wuxiang. You two have to defeat me to enter the 10th hell. All right. The corner of Nyet's lips twitched. He looked at Yi Wuxiang, and the latter nodded. The ninth heaven guardian was strong, but the two of them had a chance if they worked together. 12 heavenly sword array, activate. In the next moment, Nyet no longer hesitated. He stomped on the ground, and 12 enormous sword shadows appeared like giant trees rising from the ground. Sword array. The ninth heaven guardian's eyes narrowed in surprise. I didn't expect you to be able to see through my technique of controlling the power of heaven and earth. If we can't even see through this, how can we defeat you? Nyet let out a cold grin. Sword intent burst out from his body and filled the space with a murderous aura. He had unleashed the 12 heavenly sword array to control the power of heaven and earth. From the previous exchange, he could tell that the ninth heaven guardian was able to control the power of heaven and earth and could even absorb energy from space. In order to defeat the ninth heaven guardian, he must first stop the power of heaven and earth in the sky. Watch out. Yi Wuxiang let out a cold grunt and made his move. Like a ray of light, he soared into the sky and charged at the ninth heaven guardian. This kid's aura is so cold. The ninth heaven guardian's gaze darkened as a hint of panic appeared on his face. He did not expect Yi Wuxiang to be this strong, not any weaker than the Emperor of Hell. Overwhelming palm. However, The ninth heaven guardian was not afraid at all. With a stern expression, he uttered in a cold tone and flipped his hand in the sky, causing the power of heaven and earth to change. Chapter 4777. Boom! The ninth guardian of hell's palm fell, and heaven and earth became silent. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts appeared in the sky, instantly forming a sea of lightning that pressed down on Ye Tian and Yi Wuxiang. What a terrifying aura! Yi Wuxiang, who was in midair, felt the overwhelming pressure. His face couldn't help but change, and he was shocked. The ninth guardian of hell was too strong. He was far stronger than ordinary peak heavenly miracle powerhouses. He didn't expect there to be such a powerful existence in this world. Watch out! Ye Tian's eyes narrowed. He also sensed that something was wrong. With a low roar, the astral soul wings appeared on his back, and he flew toward Yi Wuxiang. The 12 heavens slaying sword formation couldn't withstand the impact of the lightning and was on the verge of collapse. Only then did he realize that the ninth guardian of hell hadn't used his full strength at all. He was just playing with him. What worried him was that even the ninth guardian of hell couldn't be sure if he had used his full strength. Bang! With a muffled sound, Yi Wuxiang was hit by the lightning and fell like a kite with a broken string. Almost at the same time, Ye Tian arrived and caught Yi Wuxiang firmly. Yi Wuxiang, are you okay? Ye Tian steadied himself and looked at Yi Wuxiang. The latter's face was pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He didn't know if he was seriously injured. I'm fine. Yi Wuxiang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at the ninth guardian of hell in the sky. He didn't show any fear, but his fighting spirit was strong. Not bad, kid. You only suffered minor injuries after being struck by this Lord's power of thunder. Looks like I've underestimated you. The ninth guardian of hell laughed loudly, as if he was interested. However, what surprised him even more was that Ye Tian could still activate the sword formation when he had almost complete control of the momentum of heaven and earth. Brother Nye, I need the power of the supreme twin seals in your body. Yi Wuxiang looked at Ye Tian and said in a deep voice, Supreme twin seals. Ye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't expect Yi Wuxiang to be able to see the supreme twin seals in his body. The supreme twin seals were the heavenly Dipper Death seal and the earthly fiend extermination seal from the Three Lives clan. Back then, in the Three Lives race's ancestral land, Ye Tian had fused the 7 Knights, Samsara, and the supreme twin seals, obtaining the power of undying and indestructible. But after that, he had never used the power of the 7 Knights of Samsara or the supreme twin seals. And now, the 7 Knights of Reincarnation and the paramount twin seals were finally fused into his body. But how did Yi Wuxiang see through Ye Tian's supreme double seal at a glance? Yes. Yi Wuxiang nodded firmly, his expression firm. All right. Ye Tian narrowed his eyes and nodded solemnly. The supreme twin seals belonged to the Three Life race. Could there be a connection between the 7 Knight underworld race and the Three Life race? Rumble. In the next moment, Ye Tian released the heavenly Dipper Death seal. The power of the seal was like a landslide and a tsunami, crazily released, stirring up heaven and earth. Such powerful strength. Yi Wuxiang's heart skipped a beat. Although he knew that Ye Tian had the power of the double seals in his body, he did not expect the power of the heavenly Dipper Death seal to be so powerful. Night Dragon, come out! Yi Wuxiang's eyes flickered as a black aura was unleashed from his body, causing the surroundings to fall into darkness. Roar! A giant black dragon poked its head out from the black aura and let out a shocking roar. The Night Dragon bloodline of the 7 Knight underworld race. Up in the sky, the 9th Hell Sky Guardian frowned upon seeing this. He blurted out in surprise, I didn't expect the 7 Knight underworld race to have a second person with the Night Dragon bloodline after the underworld emperor. 9th Hell Sky Guardian, I'll show you the power of the heavenly Dipper Night Dragon. Yi Wuxiang let out a wild laugh and stomped his foot on the Night Dragon's head. Boundless heavenly Dipper energy gathered on the Night Dragon, as if it was wearing a suit of armor, the heavenly Dipper armor. Great timing. The The ninth hell's sky guardian laughed wildly when he saw the heavenly dipper knight dragon soaring into the sky. Boom! At this moment, a giant golden Buddha statue appeared behind him. Waves of Buddhist energy and lightning energy fused together. It was incomparably dazzling, as if thousands of golden suns were blooming. Rumble! In the next instant, the heavenly dipper knight dragon's charge emitted thousands of golden rays, and a terrifying force spread out in all directions. The night dragon bloodline can fuse so perfectly with the heavenly dipper death seal. Tian retreated, but he was extremely surprised. He didn't expect Yi Wuxiang's night dragon bloodline to fuse so perfectly with the power of the heavenly dipper death seal. It seemed that the 7-night underworld race and the 3-life tribe must have an extremely close relationship. The 9th Hell Sky Guardian was also very powerful. He didn't seem to be at a disadvantage against the Night Dragon's charge enhanced by the Heavenly Dipper Death Seal. Bam, 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 bam. Terrifying forces intertwined in the void, and the world seemed to have fallen into a void. The forces collided, devoured, and fused, forming an extremely shocking sight. Tian. Yi Wuxiang's voice rang out again as the two sides were in a deadlock. All right. Tian obviously knew what Yi Wuxiang wanted. He narrowed his eyes and released the power of the Earth Fiend Extermination Seal without any hesitation. Boom, boom, boom. Compared to the Heavenly Dipper Death Seal, the power of the Earth Fiend Extermination Seal was more violent. The moment it was released, the surrounding space rumbled and the world seemed to be boiling. Such a powerful aura. This was the first time Tian released the power of the Heavenly Dipper Death Seal at the same time. He couldn't help but feel a surge of blood, and he almost vomited blood. Even though his cultivation was at the 9th level Heaven Perception realm, the power of the Supreme Twin Seals still made him feel extremely pressured. Whoosh! In midair, the rolling power of the Earth Fiend spread out like a raging wave and fused with the Heavenly Dipper Night Dragon. Roar! The Heavenly Dipper Night Dragon's power skyrocketed after obtaining the Earth Fiend Extermination Seal. Its roar seemed to be able to tear the entire world apart. Oh no! The 9th Hell's Sky Guardian couldn't help but cry out in horror when he saw this scene. For the first time, he showed an expression of fear. Bang! The Heavenly Dipper Night Dragon soared into the sky. Its enormous, pitch-black figure emitted a black glow and a ferocious aura, as if it was going to devour the heavens and earth. Damn it! The 9th Hell's Sky Guardian let out a furious roar. The golden Buddha behind him shattered into pieces and dissipated into golden light dots. Bang! However, at that instant, his aura grew stronger instead of decreasing. A boundless force was unleashed, as if it came from the heavens and earth itself, resulting in a tremendous pressure. Roar! The Heavenly Dipper Night Dragon let out a deep roar as it felt the terrifying pressure. This is the aura of the Heavenly Pillar. Yi Wuxiang was startled. His eyes trembled as he stared at the 9th Hell's Sky Guardian in disbelief. Why would a 9th Hell's Sky Guardian have the aura of the Heavenly Pillar? Chapter 4778. The Aura of a Heavenly Pillar. Yi Wuxiang looked at the 9th Heaven Guardian in disbelief. How could a 9th Heaven Guardian release the aura of a Heavenly Pillar? Boom! Right at that moment, the aura of the 9th Hell's Heavenly Guardian skyrocketed. It surged into the sky like a tsunami, threatening to drown everything in its path. Roar! The Heavenly Dipper and Earthly Fiend Night Dragon seemed to sense the unusual aura and roared in the air. Bang! The next moment, a loud muffled sound was heard, and a terrifying power descended. The Heavenly Dipper and Earthly Fiend Night Dragon's huge body sank in the air, and a huge crack appeared. Crack, crack, crack. Then, the crack rapidly expanded, spreading in all directions like a spider web. Yi Wuxiang was stunned by the scene in front of him. He looked at the scene in disbelief, his eyes trembling, and his face turning pale. He even forgot to retreat. Oh no! Seeing this, Tian's heart trembled. He flapped his astral soul wings and dashed toward Yi Wuxiang at the speed of light. You two juniors, this is the power of a heavenly pillar. Can you withstand it? High up in the sky, the ninth heavenly guardian's voice rang out, and a terrifying pressure descended from the sky, transforming into endless waves that pressed down madly. Roar! The heavenly dipper and earthly fiend knight dragon finally couldn't bear it anymore. It raised its head to the sky and let out a final roar. Its huge body suddenly exploded, turning into waves that rushed in all directions. How is this possible? Yi Wuxiang's eyes trembled. He couldn't believe the scene in front of him. The supreme twin seals of the three life race, the heavenly dipper death seal, the earthly fiend extermination seal, and the strongest knight dragon bloodline of the seven knights underworld race, were so vulnerable before the heavenly pillar? Boom! The violent power roared and turned into a terrifying strangulation force that pressed down on Yi Wuxiang. Yi Wuxiang's eyes trembled, and he finally reacted. He wanted to escape, but he was shocked to find that the void around him was filled with a terrifying power, and he couldn't move at all. Damn it! Yi Wuxiang cursed and struggled with all his might, but he couldn't move at all. The strangulation force was like the most ruthless storm. Even if he had the Night Dragon bloodline, he wouldn't be able to survive. Yi Wuxiang. At this moment of crisis, Nie Tian's voice rang out, after which a sword shadow pierced through the air, exuding an incomparable sharpness. Wherever it passed by, it would destroy everything. Now! Yi Wuxiang's eyes trembled violently as he sensed that the space-time had loosened a little. With a cry of surprise, his Night Dragon bloodline erupted once again and forcefully broke the space-time confinement. His figure was extremely fast. Seizing the opportunity, he quickly retreated several hundred meters away. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying storm swept past Yi Wuxiang's body, causing a huge impact on his body. In the blink of an eye, his entire body had become a bloody mess. Hua! Right when he was about to be unable to hold on any longer, a powerful and soft force swept over, and it was like a large hand that forcefully pulled him out of the Tempest Vortex. That was close. Nie Tian took Yi Wuxiang and retreated thousands of meters. Only then did he stabilize his body. He looked at the violent power in the sky with lingering fear. After some time passed, the energy dissipated and the ninth guardian of purgatory appeared high up in the sky. Yi Wuxiang, are you okay? Nie Tian took a deep breath and looked at Yi Wuxiang. The latter's body was a bloody mess, and it seemed that he was seriously injured. I'm fine. Yi Wuxiang nodded solemnly and let out a long breath. The bloodstains on his body dimmed a lot. He seemed to be seriously injured, but in fact, it was just a flesh wound. It was not a big deal. Fortunately, Nie Tian had acted in time. If he had been a little slower, he would have been directly strangled by the violent power of the heavenly pillar. The power of the heavenly pillar was too terrifying. That kind of power that could strangle everything left Yi Wuxiang with lingering fear. But why did the ninth guardian of purgatory have the power of the heavenly pillar? It seems that I have underestimated the two of you. You were able to survive in front of the heavenly pillar. The ninth guardian of purgatory looked down at Nie Tian and Yi Wuxiang with a hint of appreciation in his eyes. For so many years, there were very few people who could force him to use the power of the heavenly pillar. And it was extremely rare to have the ability to survive in front of the heavenly pillar. Ninth guardian of purgatory, who exactly are you? Why do you have the power of the heavenly pillar? Yi Wuxiang looked at the ninth guardian and asked coldly. He. The ninth guardian let out a cold laugh and said, Kid, would you believe me if I told you that I'm the heavenly pillar? You're the heavenly pillar. Yi Wuxiang's eyes trembled as he stared at the ninth guardian in disbelief. Wasn't the ninth guardian the guardian of the heavenly prison dragon gate? Why would he be the heavenly pillar? Was the heavenly pillar a person? To be more precise, it's the incarnation of the heavenly pillar. The ninth guardian spoke again. The 12 heavenly pillars are the foundation of the 7 prison realms, allowing them to maintain stability for a long time. And the heavenly prison dragon gate is a buffer zone formed by the 12 heavenly pillars. The training in the heavenly prison Dragon Gate is just a way for the 12 heavenly pillars to choose suitable candidates to become sacrifices. Sacrifices to the heavenly pillar. Yi Wuxiang and Nie Tian were stunned at the same time. They looked at the ninth guardian of hell in shock. Nie Tian had already learned from the Hung Shan sword sect that very few people who participated in the heavenly pillar plan survived. The sword sect said that those who carried out the heavenly pillar plan sacrificed their lives to repair the heavenly pillars. Why did the ninth guardian of hell say that the participants of the sky pillar plan had become sacrifices for the sky pillar? The 12 heavenly pillars support the 7 prison realms, but there's a certain degree of instability. The ninth guardian smiled faintly. For so many years, in order to stabilize the heavenly pillars, the cultivators of the 7 prison realms have to sacrifice the lives of the most outstanding young cultivators to stabilize the heavenly pillars so that the 7 prison realms won't collapse. Say, isn't this the same as using the participants of the sky pillars as sacrifices? This. Nie Tian and Yi Wuxiang looked at each other, speechless. In fact, sacrificing oneself to stabilize the heavenly pillars could also be considered sacrifices. Sacrificing oneself to stabilize the heavenly pillars. If you're the incarnation of the heavenly pillar, why are you telling us all this? Yi Wuxiang asked the ninth guardian in a cold voice. Is the incarnation of the heavenly pillar the heavenly pillar? Does it represent the will of the heavenly pillar? No one knows the truth about the heavenly pillars. Telling you all this is equivalent to announcing your death. The ninth guardian's expression darkened. As soon as he finished speaking, a monstrous aura surged from his body. The terrifying aura seemed to have set off a tsunami high up in the sky. Chapter 4779. Rumble. The ninth heaven guardian's aura skyrocketed. It was as if endless waves were surging in the void, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. His aura has become stronger again. Yi Wuxiang's eyes trembled, unable to conceal the shock in his heart. The ninth heaven guardian was already so powerful that it was terrifying. Now, he had become even stronger. Are you afraid? Nie Tian looked at Yi Wuxiang and smiled. It's useless to be afraid. I can only fight with my life on the line. Yi Wuxiang also smiled. His aura surged, and the night dragon bloodline was released. The terrifying bloodline aura was like a sea of blood. Very good. Under my pressure, the two of you actually still have such fighting spirit. It seems that I have underestimated the two of you. The ninth heaven guardian sneered and took a step forward. The heavens and earth roared, and a huge crack appeared in the void. What a terrifying power! Yi Wuxiang's body shook, and his eyes trembled again. Even though he was not afraid of death, it was inevitable that his heart would palpitate in the face of such a powerful enemy. Come on. Nie Tian was fearless. He laughed wildly and took a step forward. The celestial demon inverse rune appeared at the corner of his eyes and quickly spread across his body. Boom! Torrential battle intent burst forth from Nie Tian's body. Endless sword intent rolled and roared in the void, making Nie Tian look like a huge sword that stood between heaven and earth instead of a human. So powerful. Yi Wuxiang was shocked again. Nie Tian's strength was stronger than he had imagined. Good lad. Your aura reminds me of someone, Dongwang Zhengrong. The ninth heaven guardian's eyes darkened, and then he laughed. Senior Dongwang. Nie Tian's expression changed when he heard Dongwang Zhengrong's name. Oh. The ninth heaven guardian was also surprised to see Nie Tian's reaction. He then smiled and said, You know Dongwang Zhengrong. It seems that you're related to him. You know where Senior Dongwang is? Nie Tian's eyes trembled violently. He took a step forward, and a tremendous sword momentum erupted. Like a rising mountain, it directly pressed down on the ninth guardian of hell. Little ant, don't overestimate yourself. The ninth heavenly guardian of hell sneered and pressed his hand down. A boundless amount of power poured down, causing the heaven and earth to tremble violently. Bang! In the next moment, a muffled sound rang out. The sword aura around Nie Tian could not withstand the mighty force and collapsed. Nietion's silhouette plummeted downwards, the astral wings on his back unfurled, yet he still couldn't control the speed of his descent. Nietion. Upon seeing this, Yi Wuxiang let out a shout, and his bloodline power erupted, transforming into a soft giant wave that caught Nietion. With the help of this force, Nietion managed to stabilize himself. Nietion, how are you? Yi Wuxiang came to Nietion's side and asked nervously. I'm fine. Nietion coughed out a mouthful of filthy blood, but he said he was fine. His eyes were fixed on the ninth heavenly guardian. The ninth heavenly guardian had yet to answer his question. Since you want to know where Dong Huang Zhengrong is, I don't mind telling you. The ninth heavenly guardian smiled and said, Dong Huang Zhengrong is the only person who has entered the deepest part of the heaven-supporting pillar since the heavenly prison dragon gate was activated. He even escaped from the confinement of the heaven-supporting pillar. But he was too stupid to enter the deeper part of the heaven-supporting pillar on his own accord. In the end, he was suppressed in the heavenly abyss and imprisoned forever. Heavenly abyss? Nietion's eyes flickered with excitement. He finally knew where Dong Huang Zhengrong was. That's right, the heavenly abyss, the deepest part of the heaven-supporting pillar. The ninth heavenly guardian chuckled, and his eyes emitted a chilling murderous intent as he said, But you won't have the chance to see him because you will soon die in my hands. Then he looked down and sneered, Not only you, all of you will die. All of you? Nietion and Yi Wuxiang were startled. They lowered their heads and saw that everyone who had entered the heavenly prison dragon gate had arrived. Chun Yuan, Imo Guqin, Bai Tu Jin, Yin Wuxian, Ji Kachin, Imo Xiantian, and the others were all here. Clearly, the ninth purgatory's heavenly guardian had sent them here, and his goal was to capture everyone in one fell swoop. Who's that? Why is his aura so strong? I don't know. Look, Yi Wang and Nietion are over there. It seems like they're both injured. Why are we here all of a sudden? Which heavenly prison is this? The people who had just arrived were confused. They had no idea what was going on. Brother Niet, what's going on? Ji Kachin, Mo, Xiantian, and the others came up to Nietion and asked in a panic. That's the ninth heavenly guardian. He's going to kill all of us. Nietion wore a helpless expression and let out a wry smile. Why? Aren't we going to participate in the heavenly pillar plan? Bai Ziqiu was dumbfounded, and his mind was completely blank. He had no idea how strong the ninth heavenly guardian was, but judging from his aura, he was no match for him. Ha! The ninth heavenly guardian burst out laughing and said with a murderous aura, Your trip to the heavenly prison dragon sect has come to an end. Killing you all is considered helping you complete the heavenly pillar plan. This. Bai Ziqiu took a deep breath and stared at Nietion in shock. Where did this guy come from? Why is he so terrifying? It doesn't matter where he came from. If we don't kill him, all of us will die here. At that moment, Yin Wuxian and the others arrived and stared at Nietion. It was obvious that they wanted to work together. Even though they were competitors and even had a grudge against each other, it was a matter of life and death. If they didn't work together now, they would die for sure. Nietion, Yi Wang, if we work together, we might have a chance to survive. Bai Tu Jin looked at Nietion and Yi Wuxiang when he saw how strong the ninth heavenly guardian was. Yes. Yi Wuxiang and Nietion exchanged glances and nodded. Ha 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 ha. When the ninth sky guardian saw this, he laughed even more wildly and said coldly, A bunch of ants. Even if they join forces, they're still ants. Idiot. Don't you know that many ants can kill an elephant? Chen Yuan sneered and stepped forward. His aura was unleashed, and 8 sharp claws appear behind him. The sharp aura pierced through the sky. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, the others also unleashed their power. Violent auras covered the sky and earth, causing the void to tremble. There's hope. Nietion's eyes narrowed. He saw a glimmer of hope when everyone was united. Whoosh! In the next moment, the sword in the sky pierced through the void and unleashed a powerful sword intent. It condensed into a sharp sword in the air and attacked the ninth heavenly guardian.